Thank you very much. Okay guys, I've gone just live. The show will be starting very soon, but let me know if you can hear me or hear anything, because I want to make sure you can hear everything okay. I see you're here, Sodor. Please say if you can hear me or not, or hear anything, because we need to know.
Testing, testing. Testing. Hello? 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 Hello, hello? Okay. So, you go sit down, Simon, and we'll get going. Okay, hello everybody at the Bear. Hey! So, welcome to my next big comedy show. Oh, it's so good to be able to embarrass myself on stage in front of actual people again. I have to just put up with embarrassing myself online. It just isn't the same. I mean, thanks very much to the Bear for setting this show up for me. I know that you're relatively new in the area, so thank you very much for taking a chance on me. I was told that the Bear has actually never done a comedy show yet, so they're really hitting the ground running with me. And then they're probably going to trip over and fall on their face for it, but you know, that's what happens. Also, while we're here, I just have to point something out that really made me laugh. So if you look up here, on this very beautifully decorated Christmas tree, but at the very top, instead of an angel, or a fairy, or a star, they've got a teddy bear with a gimp mask and studded knickers with a chain attached. They know how to celebrate Christmas in style. And in a way I think it's somewhat fitting because as I've gotten older, I've become what some people, particularly in the gay community, would describe as a bear. That table got that one. But it is funny, I do tend to get hit on, and it's not necessarily unwelcomed, but it is a bit odd. I do get hit on by men more since I've gotten fatter, grizzlier, and all my hair's fallen out. I get hit on by women less, but you know, swings and roundabouts. But on that note, so I'm calling this one my Birthmas Bash, though it was actually my birthday yesterday. Thank you, thank you. I don't look bad for 57, do I? No, I just turned 31, and so in that way I can put it that I'm slightly older than some trees, but slightly younger than some rocks. Which is a very poetic way of saying, I'm not really that old, but to the younger generation I'm a fat old bastard. Which probably doesn't help that I do tend to hang out with older people, so it doesn't help that image. So a couple of weeks ago, I was in London with the Veterans Volunteer Service, a local charity around here, and I was standing next to the guy who's in charge, Gary, who's a guy in his sort of early 50s, but he looks a lot younger, and I look a lot older. So there was probably a point where the people who had shown up, who hadn't met us before, were looking at us side by side going, which one's the grizzled old soldier again? But then again, having just turned 30, it does mean that it won't be too long before I start shaking hands with my doctor with my arsehole. That one always gets them going. But we've just come into Christmas, which means we've got plenty of robin redbreasts in the garden. And that is also the name of a girl I know at the Starlight Lounge. I'm particularly rough with motorboating. Have you ever tried applying chapstick to breasts? It's not easy. It's just sort of like... if you had implants, this wouldn't be so difficult. Which is interesting, so I don't know if you knew, but the robin is actually our national bird. Which is cool, it's cute, but I do find we got a bit shortchanged on that because Scotland's national bird is the eagle. So I just imagine like at a bird watching convention that there's a bunch of British bird watchers around and a Scottish guy shows up and says, "Our birds would eat your bird for breakfast." But then the British person could go, "That's all well and good, but what's your national animal?" "Unicorn." "And what's ours?" "The lion." "So shut up." And then the Welsh person comes along and said, "Yes, but ours is a dragon. What do you say about that?" And the British person would go, "I think we need to be a bit more factually accurate when picking our actual native animals." Actually, so I just gave blood for the first time the other week. So I will admit I was a bit nervous about it, but honestly it was not as bad as I thought it was going to be, other than just like a little prick in the arm and some minor discomfort, which feels just like a really bad itch that you can't scratch for 10 minutes. It wasn't that bad at all, so I think it all went very well. That being said, there were some things that happened that even I couldn't resist making jokes about. The first one being that, as you would imagine, before you go through the procedure, you get given a big questionnaire of things to fill out about what you have going on about you so they know you're eligible. Obviously, due to the spread of AIDS and HIV and such, there's a whole section on sexual history. And the question in the middle was, have you or anyone you've slept with taken money for sex? To which I thought, surely there are subtler ways of finding a cheap date on a Friday night. And then after all of that, it goes down to the bottom, and then it just says at the very bottom, very bluntly, have you ever had anal sex? To which I was really hoping that the very last question after that would have been, if yes, what was it like? But there were some other things. So because this was just last week, obviously it was all very Christmassy-fied, and I arrived a little bit early, so the nurses weren't taking donations yet. So I had to wait around for them to do their final, prep and everything. So I was sitting on there, and then eventually they got going and they started playing Christmas music over the tannoys to get everyone all ready to go. But the first song they started playing was Michael Bublé's cover of White Christmas. So at that point, as soon as I heard it, I thought, oh, fucking take it all, don't subject me to this torture anymore. Funnily enough, when they actually finished taking all the blood out, they actually had to give it back to me because they said, we can't take this is 99% Marmite. At the very least though, I was able to put something else on my toast in the morning. Have you ever tried making, they say nuttier than a soup sandwich, have you ever tried making a blood sandwich? One vampire at the back going, yes I have, and it was delicious. Oh dear. But it's enough about my deficiencies, it's time to talk about yours, because it's time for the first roast of the evening. It's time for the Christmas roast. So, my step-uncle Ian is here today.
Hi.
So thanks a lot for coming along, and he's brought a load of his mates with him. Colleagues. Who'll probably never talk to him again after he's brought them to this. So, and a lot of people get a bit confused, so when I say step-uncle, a lot of them go, what exactly does that mean? So, just to explain, my granddad got divorced, got married again, and my step-grandmother already had kids, and Ian is one of them, so that's what a step-uncle is. It does kind of sound like something made up, but it's not, believe me. But, funny little fact, so Ian and, who's your other brother besides Ross? Tom, yes. So, they were both in the army at different points. And Tom was actually stationed at the same drill army camp where they filmed Full Metal Jacket while they were filming it. So that means that he was actually in the background of some of those shots, and so technically he is in the movie. I doubt he's credited, so don't go trying to look for him. But apparently there was a really funny bit where obviously all the people playing the soldiers, they got actual things to eat, whereas the real soldiers in the background just got, the same as ever, porridge and stuff like that. And apparently some of the soldier actors actually asked the real soldiers to come over and share with all the sandwiches and all the really nice things they were eating, which was really lovely. But apparently, out of all of them, Vincent D'Onofrio actually said, "Why are we having them eat with us? They're not actors." So, next time you watch a Vincent D'Onofrio movie, just let it be known that he apparently does not like people if they're not actors. Oh dear. So this actually might be my last Christmas I'm spending in Littlehampton for quite a while. So for those who don't know, I'm actually planning to move to Canada very soon. And just to kind of explain the whole situation, because I know there are still some people that don't understand what's going on. But basically what's going to happen is that I've gone through the whole visa process. So I started applying at the beginning of the year, and the amount of bureaucratic bullshit I had to go through just to get to that point is absolutely ridiculous. It's sort of like I had to go to London to have a blood test, and then have a Dianetics where they took fingerprint scans and then a picture of my face. And there was one point I was just saying, why don't you just have one of my testicles and have done with it? I'm going to Canada, I don't need both. But, so, I'm at the very final stage of the visa application, which basically means that the final stage is that I have to go over to Canada and I have the final interview at a port of entry, which is basically just the airport. And at that point, they will then determine if they want to give me the visa, which is a working holiday visa which lasts 2 years, and then I'll be allowed into the country. So I'm going over in February to do that final bit, but so I'm only going over there for a week though, because you have a limited amount of time you can go to Canada to get that final part validated, and past February I can't do it, I'll have to apply again. So I'm going over in February to do that, get it validated, come back, and then I'm going back over in April, May time when there's more work available to apply for. This was all at the advice of my aunt and uncle who actually live there, so best to listen to what they're talking about because they talk the talk and walk the walk and all of that. Plus I'm staying in their house, so you don't want to argue with your hosts. But I will miss this town a huge amount. There's so many great things about it. You often have to hunt for them, but they are there. But so many great people, such as people who have turned up to see me today, and thank you very much for all of that. Thank you. But I do really just want to have that sort of hustle and bustle of the big city, where there's always something going on, something to go to, and someone to talk to. Which, to be fair, there normally is always someone to talk to here in the town, but they're usually either nutters, old people, or crackheads. And in some cases, they can be all three in one person. To which I'm sure there's probably one at the back going, "Hey, George!" But there is going to be a lot of things I'll miss around here, but there is definitely one thing I'm not going to miss, and that is Littlehampton Academy. There was actually some booing over there, so I'm assuming that you're survivors of Littlehampton Academy then. Or LCS if you went there when you were a little bit older. So when I was there, it was still LCS for the last few years I was there. Which I always thought LCS sounded more like the name of a brand of ketamine than anything else. Which, considering what goes on at that school, would actually be quite fitting. But anyone who's been to TLA or LCS or whatever you want to call it knows it's not a school. It's basically a borstal you're allowed to go home at the end of the day. And that includes the teachers, because there are some people who work there who don't need to be out during the daylight. It was such a rough school that I actually got told by the school nurse once to stop being a bitch. Her actual words, to which I responded with, "It's hard not to get hurt in a schoolyard when the most popular game is Kick the George." 5-time running long-time champion? Although I don't know if the equipment could win the game, so maybe that doesn't count. This is a school that was in such a rough state when I was there that during exam times we actually had a pool going to bet which of the girls would miss their exams if they got pregnant. And to be fair, the one we all put money down on did in fact miss her exams, but not because she got pregnant, but because she got shot in the eye with an air rifle. This gives you an idea of the kind of school that it was. For the record, she was fine, she didn't lose her eye, she was totally fine, but it definitely surprised a lot of us, I can tell you that. Which is also particularly ironic because this same girl was actually the responsible reason for why I got my only detention ever in the entire time I was at school. So, first year I was at LCS, I had one of those pack-a-mackers, which is like a very thin raincoat that you can pack away into a little bag. Really convenient. Mine, the one I got though, was from Disneyland Paris and it had a picture of Mickey Mouse on the front. Which, in most schools that wouldn't be a problem, but when you're at TLA, it's basically a massive target for being bullied. So I would go around and she would point at me and go, "Mickey Mouse boy, Mickey Mouse boy." Which isn't that bad in the grand scheme of things, but it can be quite traumatizing in that sort of situation. So, at one point, I had enough of this, and I thought, I'm going to get my own back on her. And for the record, I knew this wasn't a good idea going in, but I was in that kind of situation where I was like, I'm just going to do it, and I don't care. So, we were heading to the next class at school. She was on the stairs in front of me, I was coming up behind. I, at just that moment, had the instinctual thought of, I'm going to push her and shove her down the stairs. So I went to go and do that, but unfortunately as I did this, I lost my footing and my hand instinctively went into a fist. And as this happened, she then turned around to say something else at me and I belted her right in the eye. It was at that point that my penis entered the vacuum cleaner. I know this all sounds like an excuse, but this is genuinely what happened. And obviously she told the teacher, because anybody would in that situation, and I got in trouble and I got sent to the office, and then I had to do my only detention I've ever done in my entire life. Which, it's a very surreal circumstance where you're in a room with yourself and the teacher after school's been closed, and you're having to write down 100 times, "I will not punch girls in the eye." I'm sure there's probably a joke I can make about some sort of famous celebrity in there, but I'm probably going to avoid that. But it is always a tough time for the comedians in this world, even before they become comedians, because they always kind of exist within their own little bubble. And they just sort of exist in their own world, and they have trouble fitting in. And usually at school, that world that they're in is normally a world of pain. So that certainly is what I had. But that being said, I will admit that the people over there were talking so loudly, I don't know if they were talking to me or heckling me. Thank you very much. Thank you. But there was one time at school where I had one victory. It was a very small victory, but I did have a victory. So at school when I was there, the math class desks were arranged in the shape of a giant horseshoe. So basically, what that meant was instead of different desks scattered around the room, it would be tables lined end to end to end to end to end, and then they would jut out at the end. I was at the furthest end of the table, and all the boys were at the other end. Because obviously the teachers figured out what was going on there, and they said, we'll put them as far away from them as we can possibly get. But of course they didn't figure out that kids can still shout and throw things, So that's exactly what they did. They would shout at me from the other end of the table, and they would throw pencils and pens and erasers and protractors. One kid threw his compass at me, as in one of those ones you can use to make a circle, and it got lodged in the back of my hand. So I had to pull it out. On the plus side, I got a free compass. But I usually just try to ignore them and look down and focus on my math problems just to try and block them out. But one time eventually it just got a bit too much. So as they were doing this, while I was not looking at them, I was just down on doing the math problems, I went to go like this, just to try and get something back at them. But just as I was doing that, one kid threw an empty water bottle across the table, and it went doop, 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 and it got caught in between my fingers without me even looking. So I looked like some sort of weird water bottle-based ninja. And I saw this opportunity as an opportunity to regain some cool points. So again, without even looking, I grabbed it with my other hand, threw it behind me, and just went back to doing my math problems. So for that one day, I did have a lot more cool points. Unfortunately, it all got reset by the next day because school children are kind of like goldfish. It doesn't matter what happened the day before, the next day it's going to be completely reset and they'll completely forget about it. But for that one day, I had a little bit of a victory. Thank you. But kids can be so cruel. So cruel. And probably the best example of this is something that once happened. So at TLA, they actually have a gym. So you can go there and you can do exercises. And it was actually quite popular, especially after the school got revamped. So they got a lot of new equipment in. So what they did was, the most popular thing to do in the gym was the bench press. So the kids would go onto the bench and they would do up and down with the barbells. But when you're lying on a big platform holding a massive weight above your head, the temptation to mess with them is just too strong. So the popular thing to do was that when they were on peak jerk, they would hit them in the testicles and see what would happen. And unfortunately, one time they did find out what happened because they whacked him in the balls and he dropped the barbell on his throat and he had to be rushed to hospital to be given an emergency tracheotomy. And do you think that stopped them? No, because now they knew what they could do, they did it even more. So me being me, I was like, I need to try and figure out a way to not let this happen instead of just doing a different machine other than the bench press, which probably would have been the best thing to do. But no, so my first plan was to basically wear a box underneath my shorts. But when you're lying on your back in very tight gym shorts, wearing a box looks rather conspicuous. So you get people saying, you know, clean and jerk is just a phrase, right? You don't have to take it literally. So I stopped doing that pretty quickly. My next plan was that as I was lying on my back, is that I would have my legs crossed so that they didn't have a clear path to my genitals. But when you're in a state school in the late 2000s, having your legs crossed all the time doesn't exactly create the most commanding image. So it was pretty much a big target for them to just point to me and say, "Oh, hello, sailor." You really cannot win at a state school. I think I just count myself lucky that I'm up here tonight trying to entertain you rather than for singing my supper in Broadmoor, basically. But enough about my childhood traumas. It's time to give you guys some trauma because it's time to do a roast again. So I've come up with something a bit clever. So Christina and Simon are here from the band Absuma. And Christina just had this amazing look on her face. She just went... But don't worry, Christina, it'll be quite good. So, like I said, yesterday was my birthday, and Christina and Simon were actually really nice to actually give a present bag. So I thought what would be fun on stage here today is to actually go through what's in this bag, because I've actually not seen what's in this bag yet, and Christina looks like she's going to pass out with embarrassment right now. Well, it's still going to be, I can see some lovely things in here, so let's have a look and see what Christina and Simon got me for my birthday, shall we? So we've got a jar of schoolyard sweets. So that's very lovely. I do like the shape of the jar. It looks like something that was used to have either jam or KY jelly in it just beforehand.
Cherries.
Oh, it was cherries, okay. We've got a Waitrose box of Rocky Road. The table over there actually cheered that, so you made a good choice there, Christina. And to continue with that, I can see that we also have Millionaire Flapjacks. I'm on a diet, Christina. You're trying to fatten me up again. And we've got 2 wrapped in newspaper down here. Is it a portion of chips? Oh, that's really cute. It's a little teddy bear Viking.
It's a Canadian bear.
Oh, it's a Canadian bear. Okay, that makes sense. Niska Macquar, is that the shop you got it at?
No, if you turn the thing, it means bear.
Oh, so is that like in old Navajo, is it?
Perhaps, yeah.
Okay. Well, there's another one in here, so let's have a look and see. Oh, yeah, sorry, I thought there was 2. But yes, that is what Christina and Simon have got me for my birthday, so thank you very much for that. So let us not forget that it is Christmas, as my hat clearly indicates. Unfortunately, this is a cheap one I got from Poundland, so I'm going to be very itchy under here for the rest of the night. As I'm sure will be demonstrated when I take it off and I'll have this massive ring of scabs and rash all around my head. Which, to be fair, in a way that's appropriate because that's sort of what Jesus looked like when they took him down from the cross anyway. Jill just corpsed a little bit at that one there. But Christmas can sometimes bring out the silliest and just weirdest moments out of all of us. I remember I was Christmas decorating with my mum the other week, and there were some string lights on the floor, and she just kicked them out of the way, going, let's just get those out of the way so no one trips and breaks their neck on them. To which my mind immediately went into the circumstances of what would it be like if that did actually happen. So I just came up with this idea of, what did you get for Christmas? A wheelchair. That's my sense of humour for you. I've always had very weird circumstances happen to me around Christmas though. So when I was about 9 or 10, I would say, I went, we were all around the Christmas tree about to open our presents, and all of a sudden we heard this massive crash outside, and we thought, what the hell was that? We went out, it turns out the chimney pot actually became loose and it fell off the chimney. We still have no idea to this day how that happened, but me being about a little kid, I did actually go to my dad, did that mean Santa came? To which my dad said, if that does mean Santa came, he's been on my lash again. We'll get our own back though if Santa does come back and do that again, because we've got our fire working since then, and we often have it on all throughout the night during Christmas, so if he does try to come down our chimney, he's going to get a pair of Robin Red Balls. He'll have 2 pairs of rosy cheeks that night. He'll have 1 very roast ham to go with his Christmas dinner. I can literally do these all night. Robin's red nose won't be the only thing red and glowing to lead the way that night. When he comes back home, his wife will go, are you going to take off those red baggy pants, dear? And he goes, I already have. One more. Up on the rooftop with old St. Nick's, he's coming down the chimney with the melted dick. But, of course, before we have Christmas, we have Halloween and Bonfire Night, which in this town we combine together into one celebration known as the Bonfire Parade, which I actually participated in this year. So, those of you who are here, you've probably already seen what I look like. Are we going to stop for the phone call, are we? But yeah, so most of the people here knew what I looked like, except for that table at the back, because you just come here based on my posters, so you haven't got a clue who I am. So for those who didn't see, I dressed up as Eddie the Head, the mascot from Iron Maiden, but specifically from the album cover, A Peace of Mind. So basically what's going on there is that Eddie's got a straitjacket on, he's got torn jeans, he's got chains around his neck and arms, and he's got a big split above his head because he's just had a lobotomy. Or in other words, what I'll probably look like in 5 years' time. But it was a really good costume to wear, but it was really cool to see there was a distinct generational divide in what the people thought I was dressed up as, because most people in this town don't really know about Iron Maiden, or at least not super fans like me. So most of the older people, including my Uncle Ian, thought I was Uncle Fester from the Addams Family, which is fair enough. But all the little kids thought I was the skeleton guy from Fortnite. Which, to be fair, worked in my favour because it meant that they all wanted to come up to me and give me change and have high fives with me or take pictures of me. So it worked in my favour, at least for the kids who weren't scared shitless of me. So because I've got very intense eyes and they're a bit sunken in, so when I paint over this area, it makes me look really scary for some reason. So as I was coming near some of the kids, they were all screaming and going, "No, what is that?" There was one point where I was coming up to a guy who had his daughter sitting on his shoulder, and she was so scared he actually had to put his hand over her eyes to stop her from seeing me. And I was weirdly proud of that. It's a sort of, I mean, to be fair, it's not the only time I've scared kids by just being me, but at least this time I actually managed to get some money for it. It's not the only time people have turned their heads away from me in the street. I remember one time a mom going to her daughter, "Don't look at his head, Susie. Look at that head for too long and you'll go blind." It was a really fun night though, I have to say. So I was going around collecting change for the Bonfire Society itself, and that will help us ensure us to do it again next year. Like I said, I probably won't be here to see it, but just to know that I was able to help this amazing thing that we do every year happen again next year, weather permitting, is a really good feeling, especially since I've been to see it all the time when I was growing up. So to be a part of it was a really amazing thing to do. But there were some things about it that definitely went a little bit askew. So the big one is that I knew this was going to happen, but I massively underestimated it. It was fucking freezing that night. I was actually wearing leggings under my torn jeans to keep my legs warm. It was so cold that my nose was running so badly, I actually wiped all the makeup off my nose and mouth from wiping my nose so much. So, I mean, it was okay once the parade got started because I could stay close to the people carrying the torches, so that kept me warm. But I just had to keep wandering around, just basically going like this. And because I was holding a big bucket full of change, it made it sound like I was the ghost of Christmas present coming in. I was just going. So I suffered for it, but I think it was worth it in the end. There was definitely one thing I really wanted to do while I was there, and that was to throw one of the torches on the fire at the end once it actually happened, because I'm a pyromaniac, I just have to get my fix in somehow. But since I wasn't part of one of the societies, I wasn't allowed to carry any of the torches, which is fair enough, I was only a volunteer to collect change. But when we got to the end, I was desperately trying to get one of them to give me give a torch so I could throw it onto the fire. But I guess they were watching me very closely because they wouldn't let me do it, which was probably for the best, but I just imagine the fire marshals were keeping a very close eye on me and just looking at him going, what the fuck is up with this guy? Leggings under jeans, what is this, 1986? But it was really, really fun to be able to take part in our yearly roast. But it's time to take part in one more roast of you guys tonight. So I was told on Instagram that we had someone come down from a very far way away to see me today. Are they in the audience with me tonight? I see the people over in the booth there giggling a bit. Is it you? It's not you. It's not Father Christmas, no, Christina. Well, seems like they weren't able to make it. Either that or they took one look at me through the window and they thought, no, and they walked off again. But we do have two of my... Oh, you're from Chester, are you? Oh, well, thank you for coming all the way down from Chester. I love the apples, by the way. But yeah, we've got two of some of my most dedicated fans here tonight. We've got Jack, who has been an MC for me on some of my first gigs. He's been amazing in helping to promote me, so thank you very much for that, Jack. Be sure to check out the Havana in Chichester, that's where we got started, and it's an amazing club, I really recommend it. And Christina and Simon had their wedding there a few months ago, which was fantastic. But Jack's also got his mum with him, who's actually come to see me at some of my more specific shows. She came to see me down in Bognor, which is amazing. And her name is, and I'm not kidding, Jill. We have Jack and Jill sitting in the front row right now. So, I won't keep you guys for too long. I know you need to go and fetch that pail of water. So before we move on to the last segment of the show, just bring the mood down just a little bit to talk about something a bit serious just for a moment here. So today is actually a very special day for me specifically because I remember that a long time ago I met this girl at university who was an absolutely amazing girl. Her name was Louise Clancy, and I have never bonded with any person ever in my life as much as I have as her. We went to the same clubs together, we would hang out every day, talk every day, and she was an amazing person. Unfortunately, she is now no longer with us, and the reason I wanted to bring this up is because today is actually the 10-year anniversary of when she has left this planet, and her mother, unfortunately, as well. So I wanted to just do a little tribute to Louise because she always believed in me as a comedian, as an entertainer. So I just want to say, if she is listening, thank you so much, Louise, for giving me support. I probably wouldn't be here without you tonight. And if her brother happens to be watching, Declan, I wish you all the best, man. Thank you. But now, it's time to get back to the lighter stuff again. So, this year, I've been doing a lot of work for a charity called the Veterans Volunteer Service. So they're basically a charity who get people who have been in war conflicts and basically help them, give them new purpose and do various sorts of good deeds or charitable things. They've been absolutely amazing in bringing me along to basically do things with them this year. And there have been two things we've done that have been fantastic. But at the same time, that doesn't mean there wasn't any comedy involved. So the big thing we did this year, well, actually I'll get to that later. The first thing we did this year was actually, the last thing we did this year. I've had this hat on too long, it's boiling my head. But the last thing we did this year, which was from a few months ago, we went to the Tower of London for a presentation of a cheque from another charity who had done a cross-channel crossing using basically wind sail fans. So basically those big wind sailors, if you basically put a giant desk fan on your back, you can actually fly with them. And there was about 50 of them who all came across the channel from Calais as a charitable event. But what was funny is that they didn't tell the Coast Guard about what was happening, so they actually thought they were invading. Which, considering that they were all from Newcastle, it does make me think that the Coast Guard was going, oh look, a bunch of white Geordie people, they must be invading. And I just imagine that if they got to the other side, they went, we're sending you back where you came from. To which they would go, oh, it's okay, that would have been a lot better than going by many of us. But they presented the BBS with a £5,000 cheque, so that was a really amazing thing we got to see there. And they presented it to them at the Tower of London, so I got to actually film at the Tower of London this year, which was an amazing thing to do. But we did have a little bit of a tricky situation. So the head of the Veterans Volunteer Service, he's an amazing guy in arranging events, and he's been so good at being a part of this community and bringing people up. But I will say that for a guy who used to be in the military, he sucks at orienteering. So basically the plan was that we got on a train at Arundel, we were going to take it all the way to London Victoria. We were going to get off there and get the underground straight to London Bridge. Very easy. And all of a sudden, when we got to Clapham Junction, he thought, oh wait, there's a place we can get off here and we'll go straight to London Bridge. And I thought, okay then. So we got off there. Turns out there wasn't a train that went straight to London Bridge. So we basically had to go around in circles, trying to find another train that would go back to London Victoria. We were going early, so thankfully we still got there on time. But it was just a very confusing thing. It's just sort of like, don't they teach you how to read maps in the military? If Gary sees this, he's probably going to beat the shit out of me the next time I see him. But the big thing that we did this year was that we went to France to do a special demonstration for basically showing solidarity to the people who lost their lives in the First World War, because this is where the Somme campaign took place, and also showing tributes to fellow soldiers who have been awarded the George Cross, stuff like that. And again, it was a fantastic little adventure, but that doesn't mean there wasn't any comedy involved. The first one being is that the day in which we had gotten there, we were staying at this place that was basically a converted farmhouse that was turned into an Airbnb/World War I museum. A really lovely place, but it could have used about 5 million more fly spotters. It says that by the end of the week, all the food we had was so tainted by flies and maggots, we were considering getting them together and putting them in the stew. Which probably would have been a lot nicer than most of the French food we were eating anyway. But I got up early in the morning, because I tend to do that, and I went down to the kitchen, and it was just me and another guy down there who was cooking the meals. And so we were doing that, and we were looking out the back window, because we were next to an active farm that had chickens running around in the pen. And somehow one of the chickens had managed to get out of the pen and was running around in our garden. And the guy who was cooking the meal said, I'm a little worried about that chicken, because we were right next to an active road, so it could have gotten run over. And he said, we should go and grab that chicken and put it back in the pen. And I said, that sounds like a good idea, we should do that. But then he said, but I'm busy cooking the dinner, so I can't do it, so could you go out and get that chicken? And I went, okay. So, and I actually did film this for the record. I might put it up online at some point. But basically, I was running around chasing the chicken around in circles for about 5 minutes. And eventually I managed to back it up against a wall, and I picked it up and I literally carried it like this. And then I dropped it back in the pen. So I spent the first morning of that trip chicken chasing, which for the record is not a euphemism. Although to be fair, on some of those trips it can get pretty lonely, so you have to just have it off with just about anything, really. I don't know if someone laughing back there at that. But the big thing that happened that really made, we were scared at the time when it happened, but after it all calmed down it was very funny. So the big thing that we were doing, I say we, I wasn't actually doing much of anything other than filming them. I'm sure that at one point they were probably just looking at me in the support band going, why don't you actually do something, you fat lazy bastard? But the big thing they were doing while they were there was that they had this huge log that had the name of the person who had been awarded the George Cross on it, and they were carrying it roughly along the length of the entire song, basically. That was about 20 miles, and it was fucking sweltering. It's like late June, early July. It was the hottest day there. And we were quite far from the coast, so there was no sea breeze, and there was also, because we were very high up, in terms of ground level, there was no shade, and it got like 40 degrees at minimum during the day, so we were all absolutely flat out by the end of it. But they all did the job amazingly, and I really congratulate them for it, because I know it couldn't have been easy. But I think the dog didn't like that joke. That's okay. She's very sweet. I'm sure you are. But at the end of the day, naturally we were all pretty tired and we just all wanted to go back to the Airbnb. But this was just after Armed Forces Day, so there were a lot of demonstrations going on in this town because it's where the First World War took place. And as we were on our way back, our path, because we were in a big minivan, our path was blocked by another demonstration being done by the Northern Irish Veterans Volunteer Service. So we all just thought, well, we'll join them and just be part of this, and then when they disperse, we'll head back. So that's what we decided to do. But one of the guys on the back of the bus, this young Geordie guy, very nice guy, but all of a sudden he decided that he was very hungry, and we had food on the bus, but by that point we didn't have much left, so all he found was one boiled egg on the back of the bus that hadn't been kept in the fridge. And bearing in mind this was 40-degree heat. And in his infinite wisdom he decided to eat it. And we didn't know anything about this, so we thought nothing of it. We went out to join the procession, and then they got to that point where they said, we will now have a moment's silence for those that we lost in the First World War. About 5 seconds after they said that, all we heard was and he just puked all over the ground in the middle of the moment's silence. And it was just sort of like, we had to take him into the shadows and pour water on his head, because obviously there was a risk of dehydration at that point because of the heat. He was fine in the end, he was absolutely fine, but probably the worst case of bad timing I've ever seen in my life. But the VBS has definitely been very good to me this year, and the key element that they've done for me is presented me with this. So this is a certificate that, so for the record, one of their big patrons is Roger Cannon Hall, who's the personal chaplain to King Charles. He's also the Cardinal of the Church at the Tower of London. And I won't read you the whole thing because it goes on for a bit long, but basically it's just sort of saying, thank you very much, George, for helping to film all of our various things over the years and helping to bring support and awareness to our charity. Your contribution has not only enhanced our visibility but also strengthened the public's understanding. Please accept this heartfelt gratitude for your dedicated commitment, time and skill. We wish you well and a start to the new life in Canada. So you see, being on the dole doesn't make you worthless. Oh really? Well, you'll like this last bit I've got planned then. But to be fair, finding ourselves on the dole is something that can happen to all of us very easily. And it can strike any of us at the worst possible moments. And to prove that, today, I'm going to end off with a song for you. Not a song that I've written for the record. This is an old song, but you may not have heard of it. But thank you so much for being an amazing audience. I'm going to leave you off tonight with this. Hopefully you can hear it. Snow is lying on the ground, and in the air the sleigh bells sound. The frosty patterned window panes, it's British summertime again. No, it's not, it's Christmas. It's Christmas, and though children wait for hoofbeats on the roof, but this year there's no gifts be seen, there's been a mighty goof. Yes, this year there's no peace on earth, nor food and gifts abundant. For Father Christmas has been sacked, and his gnomes are all redundant. Santa Claus is on the dole, I knew B40. My reindeers have been sold for glue. You might as well be naughty. Santa Claus is on the dole. The neat kaput in its curtains. The magic sleigh's been repossessed. The suit's gone back to buttons. My elfin helper's topped himself. I've lost my little earner. The grotto rent's 3 months behind. I'll die of hypothermia. Santa Claus is on the dole. I've lost my money spinner. Real fairy cake and Rudolph steak will be my Christmas dinner. Santa Claus is on the dole. I've been undercharging, giving all the gifts for free, destroyed my profit margin. Everybody! Santa Claus is on the dole. I'm UB40. Santa Claus is on the dole. You might as well be naughty. Santa Claus is on the dole. Beneath kaput its curtains. Santa Claus is on the dole. The suit's gone back to buttons. Merry Christmas, everybody!
Sorry? So it's like, it's probably a bit low now, but